this video, we're going to be talking about a special carotenoid called lycopene. Now, lycopene, you may have heard of, is in the tomatoes. It's what gives the red color. It's also what gives watermelon and grapefruit their pink color. This pigment is found in a variety of places, shown to protect and help with skin UV protection. Now, what's interesting is there's a few studies out there. In particular, lycopene has connections with protecting skin from UV damage and even slowing signs of photoaging. I will caveat, most of the studies that I've seen are using a tomato paste in the clinicals. What is lycopene? Well, lycopene is a carotenoid, and it is not one that converts to vitamin A like beta carotene. It turns out that lycopene is extremely effective at quenching singlet oxygen. This is a type of oxidative stress generated by sunlight. Lycopene is a carotenoid, it's fat soluble, it accumulates in the skin, and from the studies, it appears it may provide natural protection from sun. Now, this is a shorter video. There's only gonna be a few studies we go through. Lycopene hasn't been studied nearly as much as astaxanthin or beta carotene or some of these other carotenoids that we've talked about. In this case, there is a study that was done with Day et al. In 2001, where they gave lycopene to participants and they reviewed and evaluated for sunburn protection. So the summary of the study was that they had 9 adults taking a tomato paste and 10 controls, and they gave 40 grams a day of tomato paste, which is the equivalent of about 16 milligrams of lycopene daily for 10 weeks. After the 10-week mark, the tomato paste group had a 40% less UV-induced redness compared with the baseline, while controls showed no improvement. So it does appear that lycopene intake can improve the skin's ability to resist sunburn. In study number 2, Rizwan et al. In 2011, lycopene was studied against photoaging markers. There were 20 healthy women aged 20 to 47. They were given equivalent of about 16 milligrams of lycopene per day versus a control group for 12 weeks. They measured the med value, which is the UV tolerance value. They measured the mitochondrial DNA damage, the MMP1 wrinkle enzyme, and then fibrilin-1, which is an elasticity protein. In the 12-week timeline, the participants who were taking lycopene had a 33% increase versus baseline in their UV med tolerance. That is a measurement of their skin's ability to resist and handle the sun exposure. They saw a reduction in DNA damage from the mtDNA lesions by 30 to 40% compared to the control group. Now, the MMP1 induction significantly suppressed UV exposure, and fibrilin-1 increased deposition and supported skin elasticity. So lycopene measurably boosted UV tolerance, reduced DNA damage, and supported structural proteins linked to wrinkle protection. Now, in this third study by Walfish et al. In 2011, lycopene accumulated in the skin. They actually looked at the skin tone change, and they had 75 surgical patients where they took skin and fat samples. They gave the subjects 30 milligrams of lycopene per day for 1 to 7 weeks, and they were measuring lycopene serum levels in the skin and adipose fat tissues. The findings showed that concentration of lycopene in the tissue levels, proving that there was a systemic deposit, meaning that just like beta carotene, just like astaxanthin, like a lot of these other carotenoids, when you consume them in your diet, they actually do accumulate in your skin. In addition, they found that there was a foundation of photoprotective effects. Now, there was a review of evidence by Stahl and Heinrich in 2006, where they reviewed multiple random control trials with lycopene-rich foods and supplements, and they consistently found that at the 10 to 12 week mark, when participants were taking lycopene, it reduced their UV sensitivity and their erythema foundation in their skin, meaning that not only did they have less redness from sun exposure, but it looks like they also had less DNA breakage from the actual sun exposure. So there's definitely, when you think about the carotenoid family, some connections here to the science and the studies around lycopene protecting skin and making it more resilient. So as far as safety and efficacy, lycopene is deemed safe for 2 to 10 milligrams per day. The trials that they've done have been 10 to 30 milligrams per day that have been safely tested for up to 3 months. And the upper intake is listed at 75 milligrams per day by regulatory reviews, which is quite a high intake. Now, the only downside to high intake of lycopene that they've seen is a redness in the stools and also a tinting of redness in your skin. So ironically, you turn red and what comes out of you becomes red when you consume a lot of lycopene. They have seen no side effects. Now, the other health outcomes come down to cardiovascular health, cancer risk reduction, and metabolic health. And I'll mention these studies very briefly. Yoshida et al. In 2006 ran a study. The abstract led to lycopene maybe lowering oxidized LDL and improving vascular function. There was an epidemiology that was done by Guvenucci et al. In 1999, where they linked higher lycopene intake to reduced prostate cancer risk. This was I believe, a meta-analysis. And there was a metabolic health review where they showed some trials showing reduced oxidative stress and improved insulin sensitivity, which is very interesting as well. So unlike high doses of beta carotene in smokers, lycopene has not been linked to any serious negative outcomes. The worst reported effects are harmless skin discoloration. We talked about the accumulation of the carotenoid axis of color intake. And clinical studies show that 10 to 30 milligrams a day is considered extremely safe. So in summary, lycopene seems to be strengthening your skin from the inside out. It seems to have some real science, albeit not a huge amount of data, but enough and in multiple different scenarios that shows improved UV med tolerance, reduced erythema, and all of these things that allow for skin to tolerate the sun better. And on top of that, it may be protecting against long-term photoaging. So it's actually quite well studied, and it's quite an interesting carotenoid. And I think that there's some really interesting data here around skin, photoaging, protection, UV med value, and erythema. Thanks for watching. If you're new to the channel, we talk about skin health, we talk about skin products, and we also talk about the overall benefits of the science of a lot of these ingredients. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment below, and see you on the next one.